So we were talking before we came on. Welcome to the live show. And Jimmy is here. Is been very loyal to us, and we really appreciate Jimmy. I mean, people don't realize sometimes when they're watching these videos, if they haven't done the work, just how tedious it can be, how frustrating it can be. I think
yes,
last week.
at times.
You want to talk about the frustration you had last week?
Well, I hadn't sewn in a while, and to do the stitching that we needed to do, I'm trying to okay, I'm listening to you and trying to, of course, thinking of the camera in the back, and of course, if it was a little more practice I had.
Plus, the fabric wasn't easy.
Well, yeah, the fabric, but you kind of know the fabric, I think, to a point, knowing what, you being...
Well, you were trying to hand stitch, and the fabric that you're using, this fabric has a synthetic, and it's thick, and the needle is small, and it's
Precise.
not a porous fabric. If you were using a cotton fabric, it would have been much
in a
easier.
second, yeah.
So you're having a little hard time. I think I gave you a couple of tips, and I think if you guys are tuning into us and you're wondering what the heck we're doing, Jimmy as the apprentice, I can think about my apprentice days and how frustrating and tedious. It still can be tedious today working, and I think that's one of the things that you have to do as any artist, and I think Michaela can speak on this too, Patrick, as an artist, how tedious and how detailed it can be, and how you kind of have to, work outside your body sometimes, and I literally sometimes when I'm doing the tedious work, I'm watching my hands. I don't know if this makes any sense to you, Jimmy. I think it does, because you do. You've done you're actually watching your hands work.
Yeah, you're seeing how flexible you are with
holding. When you're doing tedious things, like especially when you're putting, let's say for instance, I have a sofa that had 1,500 French nails I had to put in. And that's tedious work, but it's also you do have to pay attention.
Yes.
Because you have to be good at it, and you have to be a little bit. The tips you guys can reference one of the over 500 videos you guys that we have. One of them or two of them we have at least on French nails and how to put them in. It's not as easy as it looks, like all the other things that upholstery, right, Jimmy?
Well, when you mentioned about nails, I remember the decorative nails that I did, and I did one of the projects at home, and remembering that, okay, you got to hit it a certain way and not just firmly on the head.
Right.
It's got to be a little bit
It's
off.
not like a regular nail because it's dome shaped,
right,
and the stem is in the middle.
Right.
So actually, if you're doing it properly, you're actually 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. You're actually all over the clock when you're hammering it in.
Right.
And at the first you're tapping, and then your hammering gets a little bit heavier. So when you're an apprentice, most people don't. We teach it, but most people don't teach that. I mean that trial and error is how I right, Jimmy?
Practice and theory, as I call it.
Right.
But yes, I think. Definitely if we haven't done something before, you're trying to get in the mindset of how this is supposed to be. Okay, we all know how it's going to look, but we trying to get to that point is a little bit sometimes, you have to be a little patient with yourself.
And the variables come up. The variables are the fabrics, the supplies you're using, the mood that you're in,
the wood,
the customers calling, "Where's my project?" The wood, all kinds of things. And usually, when a customer's getting a little impatient, I will tell them, this. I might say, it's a little bit harder than a little bit more work than I thought.
Well, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you can do it. It doesn't require that much time. Well, then you show me.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not being indignant about it, but everyone who they always think, oh, it shouldn't take you no time. Well, you don't know that.
I never argue with the customer.
I mean, I don't mind being. I don't mind being like, you kind of to a point. I mean,
that's between you and me,
right?
But most people when they hire a professional,
right,
they're not expecting problems no matter what. I mean, you're a genius that's coming to them, and your reputation comes before you. Maybe their friends did something.
Well,
but everybody. I don't care who you are and how good you are. Even Leonardo da Vinci had his bad days.
I'm sure some people criticized him, and he must have given them the Italian salute.
Well, I don't know.
Right?
So we were also talking about how many videos we had, and I was thinking when Patrick was telling me, I'm very proud of that. That's nice. And Jimmy's been in a lot of them. A lot of does the 527 videos include the online classes, Patrick?
I think it includes no,
it doesn't.
Uploads only.
Uploads
only.
only.
Doesn't include the live shows.
And I was thinking we have 1 million views on one one of them, I think, how to tie an 8-way tie. I think, Patrick, one of the early ones. Can you reference
no,
that?
the button's more now. Fixing a pop button.
How many?
I don't know, something crazy.
Well, you know what? It's always those meticulous things that people really want to know, because they are out there.
But what I was thinking when Patrick was telling me,
Randy.
hi guys, it's not always about numbers, you know. And I was thinking, I talk about this a few times. I know but it's worth repeating. It's not always about numbers and popularity and about fame, you know, all those things. Believe me, I've done things that have been worldwide press. I won't get into it, but I've done other things that have gained worldwide press. And what does it mean? You know, I sometimes think that if we did we did Broadway Upholstery on YouTube for one reason, for that woman out in the Midwest who contacted us very early on, and I talk about this, who said she supplemented her income. She's got a single mother of 2 kids with upholstery that she's learned from me. Wouldn't that have been all worth it?
Absolutely. Hell, well, let's take a ride out there now. Where is she? What's her address?
I mean, I don't want to be sentimental or something.
No, but you know what, Kevin? You like to know
really.
that, again, you can talk about almost anything. You know, when you're reaching people to teach them something that they're going to use, that's the important piece. That right there, it says it all.
Yeah.
That they may go further with that lesson. You know, okay, you're doing a simple chair, great. Oh, geez, you know, I mean, when I was doing my apartment over, I was saying, oh, I'm going to add things here. What can I add? Oh, an ottoman, and that's when we, you know, now we did the video.
Yeah,
with
we did that.
You know,
but how many other people out there maybe have gained something from us, maybe even laughed at us, but maybe gained something.
Laugh at you.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story.
No, not
I have to tell this story
again.
because at any time there's a lot of
story.
people out there that want to naysayers. They think that you're doing something foolish or anything like that. So I went into the design center, which is, you know, a very high, you know, falutin place of beautiful fabrics, imported fabrics, and they fine wines, you know, when they have their little dinners and everything else. I mean, it's the top of the design world, really. And I don't mean to be mean to anybody in there, but I went in there once and I was telling people they want to know what I was doing. And I said, well, I have this YouTube channel, and the person started to laugh. And they said, oh, he said, every time I think of YouTube, I think of that guy down in his basement with poor lighting, and the overweight guy who was trying to show me how to put in a spark plug in his car or something like that. He made light of it.
Yeah.
And I just think that's ignorance, really, isn't it? I mean...
Well, you know,
The funny thing is, those guys are the ones with millions of views. So I don't know what
oh, right. Well, you know what? Not everything is a Hollywood production.
Yeah,
That's
people
right.
want
Okay.
that. They
I
want
happen
that.
to think, though, that Patrick does a great job with the editing, and people who have done your own YouTube videos, you must know
well,
that behind the scenes is where most of the work
If
is.
somebody's working on their car, they want the guy that looks like them in their low-lit garage.
Yeah, they don't want.
They don't want a Hollywood production.
They don't want
can't relate to that.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
true. That's
yeah,
true.
I
I
want
didn't
you
even
to
think of
show
that.
me what I need to know.
Right.
So it shows how much they know. They don't
Yeah.
know anything.
You know, I mean, if I like you enough, you're going to get the likes. If I really like you, you're going to get the subscription, because chances are this guy is not going to be just showing me how to change my air filter, maybe a headlight, maybe a ball joint, maybe to say, hey, you know, this is, hey.
And in the beginning, I
Exactly.
think, Patrick, in the beginning, and I mentioned this before, we were being goofy. Like I
still think that's good to do. Though.
well, in
We
the
do
beginning,
that
I think
now.
in the beginning we were trying to get as many views as possible. I think we weren't serious. But then when that woman contacted us and said she relied on these videos, to
Well, you
supplement
know
her
what?
income,
You know what?
we got serious.
You
a little
guys should
bit.
look back to see where she is. If
I
you
don't
can get
know.
There's a lot of people like that on that I discovered that Reddit group.
Yeah,
People-
tell us about that,
how
Patrick.
people learned upholstery through. I get you an account so you can go on there.
Tell us about the Reddit. I don't know anything about
People
it.
said they started businesses because of you. They
Really?
rely on you.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, there you go.
Yeah.
So you know, you never know. And Jimmy, you've gained something from these classes too. I've noticed a big difference
A
in
migraine.
you. When you first
Yeah.
came, do you know what the taming
A lot
the
of
shrew-
counseling sessions. My therapist says that you'll be out of my mind in a while.
I love that's possible.
What's that movie, Taming of the Shrew? Remember that movie?
I never saw that. Now you're going to make me look at it. I'm going to watch that.
You have to see that because when you first came, you were raw. You were from the streets.
Well,
You
no,
were in
I
Grace, right?
You had your hair
I had a
greased
lot
back.
I had a lot less gray. You between you and my other half. Yeah, this is what. Yeah, she's.
You came in on your motorcycle with your leather coat on, and you were.
It was a tricycle.
It was.
And it was a.
Now we're gonna be able to get to the point.
No, the point is, I
my
think
God,
you gained some skill.
I thought you said you were going to stop drinking. That's what I.
Well, are there any questions from Randy or Malcolm?
Now it's all quiet because I can't believe what they're hearing.
I hear crickets or tumbleweeds.
Wait a minute. Sure, now we're going to look it up. There goes 10 minutes of the show. Yeah, I'm going to keep that on.
Jimmy is the world authority on tumbleweeds, and I had a question about you.
Tumbleweeds? You got.
Oh,
You know what?
He said he wasn't going to bring it up, and he did.
You know what? I had a National Geographic in my hand at the CVS. And
Man, you should have slapped him across the face.
I should have given him that subscription for Christmas.
Elliot, thank you for adding some substance.
Yeah, right.
Elliot's got a comment here.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey guys, regarding seat cushions, could you speak to the relative merits of sprung versus foam cushions and flat versus crown cushions?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that, and cushioning is really tricky in the upholstery business because we have all different body shapes.
Yes.
You know, I have a customer who's 90 pounds who likes to sit on a down cushion, which is fine if you're 90 pounds, but if you're 320, like some people,
Oh my!
I'm sorry.
For Elliot, answer the question seriously.
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
You know what, Patrick? I'll have a couple of breadsticks next week.
I'm just kidding. But it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. Body shapes and weight has a lot to do with seat cushioning, specifically, Elliot. We're not talking back cushions are a whole easier subject.
Yes.
Seat cushions are the hard thing because that's where 90% of the body weight is, and you guys could correct me on this. Malcolm and Randy, I'd like you to weigh in on this, no pun intended, about how much distribution between a seat and a back cushion. I would say it's about 90% seat and about 10% back.
Okay.
If you're leaning back further, maybe 15.
Yeah, you
or
want a
something
comfortable
like that.
back, but I think.
But back is easy. The
Yeah.
best back cushion in the world, Elliot, let's start with the easy stuff, is a 50 down, 50 feather back cushion, period. That's the best cushion, and it lasts the longest, and you can adjust it to each person's height, which is important. Seat cushions are much harder because you have another component, which is the bottom of the cushion. You know, is that you start with that. Is that a sprung seat, or is that a zigzag spring seat, or is that a flat platform seat, which are really hard to make comfy. A flat, So if you have springs, if you have coil springs, and you add a spring cushion and a down, that is the Rolls Royce of any piece of furniture. So you got 8-way tie spring on the bottom and a spring core with the down wrap. I don't like the foam in the core because it bottoms out.
Okay.
It'll bottom out. A spring will always come back, right? And last for a good long time. Foam, even if it's a high density foam, even if it's well made, they just don't put foam in there. They put Dacron. They build up the edges. They do a lot to that before they put it in. But still, it's going to bottom out somewhat. And even if it bottoms out a little bit, you could start seeing it. It starts to compromise the cushion. And sometimes people see a dent and they think it's not as comfortable. It might still be as comfortable, but they see the dent and they think it's not performing.
Okay.
So I have a lot. So the best seat cushion, best back cushions we talked about. Best seat cushion springing down by far. I think. Yeah.
Well, you don't run into too many. How many?
I do. I had a customer, sweet lady, in I won't tell you where it is because I don't want to hurt anybody, but she's a sweet lady. She had a cushion that she's determined she wanted an all-Dacron cushion because her friend said an all-Dacron cushion, she was very uncomfortable in it. And it was brand new when she bought it. So I went out, I told on the phone, all-Dacron cushion is not a good idea. If you don't like what you have now, probably, I gave her two options. Foam and Dacron, but not a lot. It's on the top. Or a springing down. She didn't want to spring, no pun intended, for the springing down. So she went with the foam cushion, a good foam cushion that I custom made, high density foam, and I wrapped it with Dacron. I brought it in. A week later, she called. She's not happy. She doesn't like it. I said, well, I've come out. I had to go back out. It was a little bit. in the inner city. It was hard to get to. But it's another thing. You want to talk about customer service, you guys? You definitely, as an upholsterer, need your customer service. You don't want a bad review saying, he did a job for me, I had a problem, and he didn't take care of it.
Yeah.
Your best customer is somebody that has a problem and you take care of it right away.
Yeah.
It don't go on to anything else until she's happy. That was a lesson taught early on in my career. Always take care of the customer. They're always, even if you don't think they're right. And in this case, she wasn't right to begin with. She wanted a Dacron cushion. I averted that problem, right? Being the expert, I convinced her not to do that. Because what would happen, Jimmy? You see that Dacron over there? You want to grab that Dacron right there without taking the staples with it? So we got a lot to talk about, even though we have a few Facebook. So she wanted an all Dacron cushion, which she probably wanted me to layer it out like this. Dacron's a wonderful batting for certain things, but it ain't a batting.
It's not a cushion.
It's not a cushion.
You couldn't.
It's not a cushion. It will just clump up and fall and lose all of it. It's a good wrap over a foam, and it's good for outsides and things like that, but it's not good for an actual
Well,
cushion.
the only other way I would think that you could do it to support it, I mean, even if you wrap
Something
it up.
has to go inside it.
Yes, there has to be some support.
Yeah. And even
somewhere.
on back cushions that don't need the support, you guys. Here's the case in point, right? I went out to another house where they were complaining about back cushions, which were all Dacron, and these cushions weren't cheap. They were all Dacron. They had channels in it, like a down cushion, but they were stuffed with Dacron. No good. They're balling up and caving in. You can't do anything with that.
Well, how would something like that, especially being that flexible, be able to sustain?
It doesn't, and like I said before, it's a 10% of the body weight on a back cushion. The Dacron can't even hold up to. Never mind a seat cushion.
Okay.
So with this customer, I promised her that I'd make it right, even if I had to order a down cushion for her, so she's lighter. And so I left it with her. If you still don't like it, we'll work something out with an all down cushion, which is probably going to be the best thing for her. So that, customer service. Any other comments or questions, Patrick? Or are they just listening to me babble on?
I think Malcolm said, today most people are used to foam, and if they complain about springs, it's because they never sat on one for very long.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But
and, Lee is here, and I think...
Hey, Lee.
There's a question in there from Lee. I printed out Lee's question. Should be that one there. Is that Lee?
All right, let's start with that if she's on there. So let's go to the Facebook. We have two, and they're long, but that's good. It gives us more content. Lee says, I'm wondering, do you want to read this, Jimmy?
No.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about which size thread to use. I was told by the guy who just fixed my 1245 industrial sewing machine I need to use size 138 thread. I had posted in another upholstery group. They said my technician is wrong. I'm really thinking my technician is correct. I'm very new to sewing an industrial sewing machine since I finally got someone to fix my machine since the last place I brought it to got serviced and was never serviced. So now I'm wanting to understand thread for upholstery and how to pick thread. I'm also wanting to learn what is the difference between the 190 size needle that also has a 20 or 21 or 23 on it. I hope I do not sound dumb, but I'm willing to learn so I do not make bad mistakes that can break the sewing machine like the last place I brought it to that never fixed it but only replaced parts. They didn't fix it at all after it was dropped off. Well, after it was dropped off the cart at the end of the last year, and I freaked out thinking that they had broken my machine. Past Monday, I finally got a guy to come to my house and fix the machine and teach me about it and what to do for timing and bobbins. So I hope that I can explain all these things, that you can explain all these things on live on YouTube Monday.
Yeah.
I can see my, what is this, path? 1245 was not broken, but the place I brought it to last year didn't know what they were doing and not knowing anything about industrial machines. So until Monday evening, the upper tension part wasn't even screwed on tight. It was barely screwed on. There were other parts of machinery that was way off, including the timing. So please be careful when you bring your machine to if you are new to industrial sewing machines. I am really recommending Collier Equipment in Lexington, Alabama if you are needing parts on ever needing to find a technician for your sewing machines. They are a godsend to me because no one around my area works on industrial sewing machines, so I hope I can learn about sewing thread and needle so I can upholster even more than I can have learned in the last year.
So is that it?
Yes.
That is a lot, but I do want to start, and I want Patrick to pan over to the machine that I have, the Juki. Not yet, Patrick, but I just want to talk about. So when I first learned upholstery, how to sew, I learned on a treadle machine turned to an electric Singer machine. Okay, so that meant that I had to know every idiosyncrasy involved in that machine, and that was tough. That was a tough machine. That was like getting into, I don't know if I can, going into NASCAR on a Model T Ford. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it's something like that. It's like I had to learn all of it. I mean, I was shown a little bit of it, but I had to actually work into the machine. I don't know if you know what I mean by that.
Well,
But-
I mean,
Well, I want to get to that yet, but so I learned on over 100-year-old Singer machine that needed to be oiled in multiple spots. I think 3 spots. It had belts that were put together with hug clips because it was transferred over from a treadle machine. I mean, there was so many idiosyncrasies. But when that thing was running, that thing purred if you knew how to do it.
yeah.
And threading was really important. The threading that you used was really important. So I do want to show for is it Lee? Patrick?
Yes.
I do want to show. This is what I use. You guys can check it out. Can you see that, Patrick? That shows the weight. It shows the brand name. I've been using this forever on the Juki machine. I think some machines are different, but the Juki machine is perfect. So let me talk a little bit about the Juki machine. Can you see that, Patrick? Is my finger in the way at all?
Try to get a little bit closer. I'm going to see the right.
I want people to know what I use. And really what's important, you guys, one of the things that's important, you need to wound your own bobbins with the same thread. A lot of people make the mistake of having a different pre-made threads, like on the monofilament, they have pre-made threading. Be careful with pre-made bobbins. You have to, I know it's a pain in the neck, but you have to wind up, you have to use the same thread for your bobbin. So pan over here now for a minute, Patrick, on the Juki. This machine changed my life in upholstery. If it wasn't for this machine, I'm not sure if I would be an upholsterer right now. That's how important it is. This machine here is made, it's a teaching machine. It's made for students. It's what they've done is they've reversed engineered the Singer, and they made this into the most simplest self-oiling, big feature on this. All your oil is on the bottom. There's no oil that touches anywhere else, and that means that you're not going to get your fabric stained. On the Singer machine, it was a nightmare because you're oiling up here and everything else.
Piece of paper, Dad?
What's that?
The yellow thing. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And so the Juki machine was made for students. What that means is, if you're a professional and you get one of these machines, you're gonna purr, man. You're gonna move. You are NASCAR. You're in NASCAR now, right, Jimmy?
Yes.
So I wanted to make a couple of points. So same threads. My bobbin's the same thread, right? I make my bobbins as I go along. There's little things about the bobbins that you have to know. Very sensitive when you're changing a bobbin. Okay. You got this little, when you take it off after you've wound it, you've got a little bit of piece. This is how sensitive it is, that's sticking out. Make sure you cut that, okay? And then when you put your bobbin in, just give you guys a little, I'm sure that you guys will find this interesting. We should make a video out of this, Patrick. So I always remember this, when you put your bobbin in, give yourself a little bit, like about 6 inches there, and the figure 9 is not how you want it. You want I call it a backward 9. Some people call it an upside down 6. You see that, guys? That's important because it shows you how to put the bobbin, how you put it in the bobbin. It makes a difference. Okay, then you go to the opening and you hold your bobbin to make sure you hold it to get it out to here, and then you test it. See, what I'm doing is I'm testing I'm testing to make sure that it's pulling freely. And so people might wonder, why on the top thread do I have to do all of this action? You're coming through here, you're coming through a hole, you're crisscrossing here, you come in here, and there's a spring down here, you got an arm here, you got an arm up here, you got an arm here, you got another opening, an arm and an opening here, and then you thread your needle left to right. Why are you doing all that? Well, if you pull this pulled. If you pull this, you have it does a certain. All of this is to get this to a certain tension, to somewhat almost perfectly match your tension on your bobbin, so that when you're sewing, you get an even threading. I don't know if people realize that. That's what it does. And if one of these things is off, it will affect the sewing. And you're constantly watching all of this to make sure that you're good, right? Make sure that you see how this is loose here for some reason. Before I start sewing, I'd make sure that that was tight, right? Before I sew. Now I'm going to show you how I put my bobbin in. I do this blind. You should be able to do this once you get good enough that you can lift this up to see, but I'm going to put this in. I got my arm up on the bobbin, and then I don't know if you heard it snap, and then listen to this. That's locked in place. It's got a little play in it, but that's locked in place. It's important to remember, even a little piece of thread in there, and it doesn't, if you think it's locked, you make sure you know it's locked, because once you start sewing, it could come loose and you could break a needle. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lift the bobbin thread up. You can lift your foot up just to see this. Your bobbin should come through. It's coming through. You take your scissors. You work your bobbin out, and then before you start sewing, make sure both threads to the back. Now, where did I learn how to do that? The reason I'm good at sewing, the reason I'm really good with the Juki is because I had to troubleshoot on the Singer. And one of the things about that they don't teach a lot of times, I see a lot of people just starting to sew like that. They're wondering why they're getting jammed up every time they start. It's because if it's this way, or both threads are this way, or one thread is this way, it's going to jam. Always make sure your thread starts out like this, out to the back. And always make sure before you start sewing, you plant your needle every time you start. Plant your needle first, and then go. I hope that answered most of our questions, Patrick. The needle.
I put that. So say again what that yellow piece of paper was. I have it on the screen now. So
that yellow piece of paper is the threading that I use. It shows you the gauge threading. In this case, it showed you. I think it's AAA. It also shows you color. The color. I think that's egg color. I think.
Yep. Eggshell.
Eggshell. I have beige. I don't carry a lot of threads. I have blue in the other shop. I have a red one here. There are not many variety of color, but it's always important because you're winding bobbins at the same time. If you're really getting into sewing, you should have two of each.
I hope that helped. Malcolm wanted a better view of it, and
of what?
It wouldn't focus when you were putting it on there, so I have it on the screen now. If anybody's interested in that.
All right. But that's what I use. But the Juki is the important element here to you guys. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what poor Singer. Singer had the market cornered for 100 years. And then this overseas country manufacturer came along, and they bought the Singer and whatever Singers they did, and they reverse engineered, and they came out with a better product. Let's face it, I'll admit it, they came out with a better product. The biggest feature would be the self-oiling, but also the simplicity of the top part. Even though I made it sound hard, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different exercises there before you get it down here. All of which is to get that proper tension. Isn't that interesting, you guys? And the bobbin only has that one, but you have to put the bobbin in the correct way, right? So I don't know. I never got into the sewing too much. Also, your speed, your belt has a reverse, which is wonderful. It has a foot pedal. It has for your knee. You just push it up like this. That comes in handy. This really gets in handy when you're doing a lot of sewing, you guys. So I guess I think I answered most of the questions, right? Do you want to read that next one? Sorry, Jimmy.
Well, you know
Malcolm
what?
says, wow, Tex 30. I use that for garment repair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy, what do you think?
Dustin Gold. Wow, this is a nice chair.
He's still alive.
Dustin Gold. This is from Dustin Gold. There I go again. We lovingly restored the stunning 1800s diamond tufted parlor chair to its former glory. The wood frame was repaired using various methods and materials, then rejuvenated with linseed oil and turpentine, and polished with a wax oil blend. New burlap jute straps were added for strength, and the inside back was rebuilt with 3 layers of foam and 2 layers of cotton. We recovered the chair with the new fabric, diamond tufted the inside back,
Wow.
and added 480 individually tapped antique brass
Wow.
French nails for a regal finish. And this looks like a collector's item. This is unbelievable.
This is a master
The
here.
fabric is...
Hold that up, Jimmy, to the
Yeah,
camera.
I mean, how close
Can
do
you
you
see
want me
that,
to get?
Patrick?
Yeah, one sec. I'm trying to get it up on the computer.
Can I see it for a second?
Yeah.
There we go. There you go, guys. So,
What a nice job.
there we go. Wow.
You got it up there?
I love the shot.
You got it up there,
Yeah,
Patrick?
the yard with the flowers in the background. It's a really good picture.
That is a love of furniture to do
Look at
that.
that picture.
Well, they sent 16 pictures. We only have
Yeah, Dustin had a lot of
we only have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Do you have
5.
all the 16, Patrick?
No, just the one in the yard. That one's.
I mean,
cool.
that is, I think, well, the top 2 you have. The 3
But you know, when you look at this, you guys, he's got it. Is this? I don't know if this is his house. Did he say it was his? The wood frame. Did he say it was his? I don't know. But whoever it is, he's got it featured. It's like the featured piece of furniture in his house, which is
I should have got that picture.
which is
Wow,
really
he's a good
interesting.
photographer, huh?
the thing about upholstery is you mentioned Van Gogh. I don't equate myself to Van Gogh, but I did an arts and crafts settee and a side chair the other day, and I delivered it. It was delivered. The woman had these beautiful needle points. I think we featured it. Did we show this, Patrick? I think I showed this. Hold on, I got a picture. Why not? But let me talk about it first. She had done these needle points way back in the 80s, and she was just waiting for the right person to come along to finish this on these art and crafts pieces, the settee and chair. And I have to say, it came out stunning. She's got a beautiful home in Boston, and it is the featured piece in the whole house. And I'll show you. I talk about it when I can actually show you. And I was honored to do it for her. I did a great job. But you guys won't believe this. So this is it partially finished. I'll show Jimmy first. What do you
wow.
think, Jimmy? What do you think of that?
Wow,
Do you see that?
that's classy right there.
Patrick, do you see that? Let me tell you.
That's why I don't have that to put up.
Tell me if it goes up. I want to talk about it a little bit. So I filled it with horsehair, the seat,
Yeah.
and
Send it to me. Text it to me.
the needle points, Patrick. The needle points are
Yeah, text that to me so I can put it up.
have a horse scene in it, right? It's got a horse scene in it. Okay, that's the unfinished one. And
Send us the finish. I'll be able to fit both. It'll be the whole screen.
where's the finished one now? Oh, here it is in the house. This is even better, Patrick. This is even better. It's in the house. I'll show it first to people. So these two sit at the end of a big open living room, and when you come into the house, you look to the left, and there's a lot of things in between this, but this is where your eye goes to. So oftentimes we have the honor of being the feature piece in somebody's home. That's why we do good work, right, Jimmy?
I know you do classy work, Kevin. You are like the artist.
And this, you're doing this for your daughter. What a dad this guy is. This is his 10th, we're going to have 10 classes in here. Right, Patrick, when we're done with this?
Yeah, it should be.
10,
Maybe 9, maybe 8 or 9.
I think 10, Patrick.
Well, I might have to. Today's class was kind of short.
You
so
got
I
9?
did
Oh,
five.
okay. Well, you're going to have, the point is, hours and hours and hours and hours of work, and people who don't do the work have no idea, right?
No, they think that and again, going back to the first part of this show, talking about how they have no idea that you can sew this and put it together in top 5. Like, no, I mean there's got to be a little bit of precision to this.
Tedious. It's tedious.
Yeah, it's tedious
sometimes,
work.
yeah.
You got to be a little bit patient.
And everything's layered. It's layered work, like on that settee. Sometimes the simplest pieces are the hardest pieces because it doesn't look like there's a lot of upholstery on that. But that seat has the webbing. It has the the copper springs, the 8-way tie top, burlap, edge roll, horsehair, muslin, cotton, and then the fabric. There's a lot going on underneath
Well,
that,
think
you
of the
know.
settee that I did. How much work was that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, that was
Is
stripped
that one
down.
of the ones we have online?
Yes.
Tell people about that so they might be able to go on and...
Well, this settee was a friend's. He asked me to do it, and I said, sure, why not? You know, I had no idea. He said, oh, it's been there for years, and it was somewhat old and had been touched. And I said, all right, sure, no problem. So when I got it home, it was... upholstery coils were hanging by, you know, the material itself is already probably a good 70 years old, and it stripped it down. The only thing that was left was the upholstery coils and the frame of the settee itself, and this was a total rebuild. Webbing and 8-way ties, foam. You know, it got to be quite. I mean, how many? It was about 25 lessons. So I think it was,
That was a big one.
yeah, this is about 25 hours worth of work.
So Patrick says we have 527 videos. Those are just on the channel, but if you count all the online classes, Patrick,
I mean, we've
that's
done
a
at
lot.
least, what, 8 to 10 different projects, Patrick?
This must be the 10th, right?
Yep.
The count.
Yeah.
Jimmy's been at such a good sport. He's been there the whole time as an apprentice. It's not easy being an apprentice anything, especially at his age. I mean, I don't mean that as a...
I'm over 40, everybody.
It's a lot easier learning, though, when you're younger.
Oh, yeah, well, you got the energy, but you know what? Being a little bit older, you have hopefully a little more patience and a little
But
more...
I think what it does is, though, it showcases for people who are getting into this trade. Like I think this trade is going to have I think it's going to get revitalized. I really do. Maybe our videos will have something to do with it. I had a Columbia doctorate person call, Columbia doctorate degree person call me, and they were talking to me about the upholstery industry and how they felt, they're writing a thesis on upholstery, if you can believe it.
Okay.
And she was talking about how she believes that upholstery is one of these industries that's going to really come back. And I said, well, I'm not sure. And then she quoted me a statistic that was a little alarming about some of our designer friends. And she said that designers, because they're always, today a designer is not interested in reupholstering.
No.
They want to buy new.
No.
They want everything, they're out with the old, in with the new. And she quoted me a statistic, and Randy and Malcolm, I know you guys listening won't believe this, that 10% of the carbon footprint are from designers.
Mm-hmm.
Buying, new stuff rather than, so her paper's all about, and what I told her, I said, I always felt upholsterers were the best recyclers ever. I mean, we take a piece of furniture and we save it from the landfill, and
Oh, right. I mean,
So-
that's true for somebody, refinishing a piece of furniture. Again, I'm doing, for example, talk a second, a cabinet that's 100 years old that's been in my family, and I total redo, another project from the shelving and the glass mirrors and so on, but I wanted to do it. I enjoy doing something like that. I brought it back, again, like you say, right in the landfill.
yeah,
You know?
I think it's worth the time. I think people are starting to value it more and more. Any other questions or comments, Patrick?
Let me just go back a little bit here to Elliot on another one. Question about Marshall units. For
Yep.
a 4-inch cushion, how do you decide between 3.5 or 5-inch springs?
I never go to a 5-inch spring. I always do. The cushioning, on average, your boxing's 4 or 4.5, sometimes 5. But even on a 5-inch cushion, I wouldn't put 5-inch springs in. I always go with the 3.5, no matter. There's slight differences. When you get into a smaller cushion, you can't really do a Marshall unit, in my opinion. You get down to like a 2-inch.
Okay.
2-inch box cushion. I don't usually see that on a seat. Usually I see that on the back. But it's pretty standard, and it sounds like he's making his own custom cushion.
Yeah. This will be fun to see.
Yeah, I actually could do it. I could order the Marshall units and make my own, which is kind of neat. Maybe I should start doing that. But I have it made. I tell you, the biggest reason. Who is this, Malcolm? Elliot. The biggest reason why I have my cushions made. I give the sizes that I want, and they make the whole cushion for me, and it comes in done.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest reason I do that is because of the stitching that requires to close it, and the special machinery that's used.
Oh.
You can't do that on your machine.
You'd have to do it hands?
No, you can't even do that. You really have to close it with the machine, but they have a machine that closes it really tight. You got a cushion this thick. And you need to, all that wrapping has to be tight. It has to be a self-contained unit. It has to be tight. It's impossible, in my opinion, to get it as tight, at least to my satisfaction when I used to do them by myself. It was too loose. Now sometimes people take a loop stitch, and that's probably what he does. After he does one stitch, he might take a blanket stitch, maybe. As long as it looks neat, too, I guess you can do that. But I'd like to know how he finishes, how after he stuffs it, how he closes the cushion. I'd like to know. Because that's
I mean, because
the hard part.
you need the extra pair of hands to do that.
And usually it's a downproof ticking that's used. Downproof ticking has to be used for the spring and down, for the down and wrap. And that material will rip easy. So it's hard to stitch that it's hard to hand stitch that. Talk about a material that's hard to hand stitch like this fabric was. So web face, these are the challenges upholsterers have. All these different materials that we use.
Yeah, it's great to have the machinery there for you. And
I did this, the cotton, the natural, everybody likes natural materials, but natural materials are inconsistent. Like cotton comes in varying, it can be wavy, and so, you have to determine what's going to look good too. People want something that looks good.
I responded.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I've been rebuilding and reupholstering a Davenport made by Meyer, Gunther, and Martini. It was made in 1965. It has a great frame, as you can imagine.
Yeah, nice.
So there you go. There's the project.
Nice. Well, see, I'm glad people are listening. I hope I have more to offer. Patrick, do you have any other business that you want to talk about?
Well, do you want to mention that? So after this class with Jim, we should probably, so people aren't expecting a bunch of classes. We're taking a little bit of a break.
Yeah, but what was interesting about today is we went on a little bit about just talking about where we usually just showing. Because
we always talked about doing a sofa.
We did.
Yeah, we did a sofa. But so I think we have a library of, I should count how many. I think it's 10 classes now.
Maybe we'll get into something else. I'm interested.
So I think we're going to pause this for now. It's not going to say it's over.
Right.
Well, at the Board of Directors meeting next week.
Well, you know what's funny?
Exactly. We have so much accumulated that I think we can take it. Because we're going to be doing a lot of other
stuff. You guys should categorize it too. I mean, during the day I'll watch these videos and say, oh, okay, this is how we did it. Oh, okay, this is why. Yeah. And, watching some of the older ones to say, all right, this is how. Okay,
but we're gonna keep doing the live shows. I think we're talking to Jimmy. We're gonna maybe do some classes for free during the shows. So.
Well, we did A to Z. Remember a couple of those, and those are that was with me doing it, right?
Yeah.
But I was talking to somebody about this. Somebody that watched the videos. They said honestly, they're made for apprentices. They're not made. Even the A to Z, I think, Patrick. We couldn't show everything. You can't show everything. It's just too much. Well, so people have to remember that you're getting some basics from me. You're getting maybe you're getting basic to early apprentice to maybe a little bit of an advanced apprentice. But what makes you really good and gets you up to where the Malcolms and Randys and Elliots of the world are would be repetition.
Right.
And that's what develops any skill, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's a matter of practice and your level of confidence. You say, oh, geez, okay, now I know what they mean by this.
And your ability to stick with it. I mean, a lot of people, so a lot of people get misled by the videos. I must admit this. A lot of people, we make it look easy sometimes, I think. A lot of people get misled. I can do that. And then they realize that, beyond the basics that they learn from me, which I'm glad they learned from me, but beyond that, to get really good and fast. Fast is another thing. Is a
That's what we were talking about before you got here, me and Jimmy.
Yeah. Speed.
Malcolm made a good point that we could go through all the different centuries of. I mean, he said almost if we did all the antique furniture, we wouldn't even come close to doing every piece of antique furniture.
That would be. I mean, you and I had talked, Patrick, because I had every piece in my living room is redone, and the only piece that is not is the couch that I had to buy.
Right.
Well, that's why we don't. That's why we're not doing every single piece.
Right. But again, Facebook community, we had they go through their spits and spurts of different types of furniture, and of course trying to bring something here to class and talking about it. It's a matter of the timing. Thing.
Like that's why we haven't done every piece, because these pieces have to go somewhere. We can't just get all the pieces and have them sit forever.
No.
These pieces have had a a use.
They have a life afterwards, right? And that's another thing. There's a business to run too.
Yeah.
At the same time, is there any other questions, Patrick?
No, so I guess what does the future hold after this class with Jimmy?
I think it's fun doing these live classes because I'm always going to have material with what happens because I'm a fully upholstered shop. You know, we're full, you know, active, you know, busy shop. There's always something to talk about.
We have a lot of stuff coming up that we're talking about doing for the shop that's not related to this. So
right.
We're going to be very busy doing that. We're going to always do videos and live shows.
Yeah.
And I think we'll revisit.
And Dad's going to have his poor comedy, but that's okay.
That's right. I mean, there'll always be tumbleweeds. That's what we have to think about.
Yeah.
I told you, I think Jimmy will come call in a year or so. Say, I found that, and then we'll have to do another class.
I'll show up at the front door. What's that address in where you live?
Is
it that mansion on top of the hill?
There's no forwarding address. I know that.
Our mission was always to build a library of classes. We've done that now. So
we
have so much on there for everyone to do, and
that's right.
We'll eventually find something else.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up, Patrick. Right?
So what's next week's going to be cushion for Jimmy, right?
Yeah, we're going to do the cushion,
and we will.
That'll be. You guys will see this class, I'd say, around the holidays.
Actually, you'll be able to see Jimmy use the Juki that we talked about.
Yep.
And no treadle machine for you, Jimmy.
Well, you know what? When we talked about that sewing machine demonstration, I still can remember have visions of a friend whose grandmother was a dressmaker for George Marston. She had this the big industrial.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I mean, amazing piece of
machine. She had it's called a walking foot.
Yes,
and
the pedal was like...
We had some of those machines. Those machines are hard to handle, man. You know, they're powerful machines.
Yeah, I was like...
they were made to sew leather, those machines.
Oh.
So that they can go through, those needles could go through like a half of an inch of materials. We don't get into that. I don't do leather anymore because the machinery that I have, I don't have a walking foot machinery. So we don't do heavy leather. Thank goodness some of the leathers that they make today, the Italian leathers, are thin. We might consider that. It has to be a thin leather. So I think that's going to wrap it up, Jimmy. We'll see you next time, right?
Right, absolutely.
See you next week.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Have a good
week.
week.
Easy. How long was that, Patrick?
Almost an hour.
Yeah.
Good.
You.